Double, double make sure. Hello, 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 hello. Let's try. Just make sure it is working. Mm. Doodly doodly do. Doodly doodly do. Pum pum pum. Pum pum pum. Oh Lord, Lord, I am Lord. Lord, Lord, Lord. No, no, no. Apple, 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 apple. Okay. And stop that. Now, let me us open the Black Library app. Now, go back to one. Okay. The Horseheresy Primarch series. Sanguinius, the Great Angel by Chris Wright. It is a time of legend. Mighty heroes battle for the right to rule the galaxy. The vast armies of the Emperor of mankind conquer the stars in a great crusade. The myriad alien races are to be smashed by his elite warriors and wiped from the face of history. The dawn of a new age of supremacy for humanity beckons. Gleaming citadels of marble and gold celebrate the many victories of the Emperor as system after system is brought back under his control. Triumphs are raised on a million worlds to record the deeds of his most powerful champions. First and foremost among these are the Primarchs, superhuman beings who have led the Space Marine legions in campaign after campaign. They are unstoppable and magnificent, the pinnacle of the Emperor's genetic experimentation, while the Space Marines themselves are the mightiest human warriors the galaxy has ever known, each capable of besting 100 normal men or more in combat. Many are the tales told of these legendary beings. from the halls of the imperial palace on Terra to the outermost reaches of Ultima Segmentum. Their deeds are known to be shaping the very future of the galaxy. But can such souls remain free of doubt and corruption forever? Or will the temptation of greater power prove too much for even the most loyal sons of the Emperor? The seeds of heresy have already been sown, and the start of the greatest war in the history of mankind is but a few years away. Prologue. Now he was running, properly sprinting down the corridors. The floors were already filthy. Everything seemed to be filthy all the time. Weren't there servitors to handle all that? To scrub the stone and scrape at the windows? No one seemed to care. For all the frantic building going on now, all the mad rush to create greater and more ostentatious towers, the little things weren't being done anymore. But why was he worrying about that? Why did his mind wander all the time? A weakness that something every master who had ever schooled him had tried to improve. Stick to the task at hand. Stick to the task at hand. This was a sacred duty, after all, a divine duty. He was lucky. He'd been given secrets that millions of others would have killed for. Some had tried it before. Knives in the dark, poison pills in the ceremonial wine. It was a vicious place, this world, this Imperium. Nests upon nests of serpents, all writhing into and out of one another, fangs poised to bite. He lasted this long. That was already something to be thankful for. He'd been faithful. He'd been diligent. He'd been careful. That was why they gave him tasks like this. They trusted him. They liked him. He ran on. His heavy robes flapped against his legs. His breathing became wheezing. He could really do with a sit down, some wine, and a sucrose wafer or two. The augmetic loop stitched under his right cheek itched painfully, and he resisted the urge to reach up and feel the wheels where the input jacks chafed. Candles guttered as he raced past them. Servo skulls whizzed the other way, chattering to themselves with that weird mix of clicks and beeps that meant nothing much to anyone but the tech priest. He skidded past a high window, thickly glazed and mullioned with lead veins. He got a brief glimpse of the world outside the smoldering warren. He saw the towers, the old ones that still bore the scars of war, the new ones going up everywhere, enfolded in scaffolding like vast cobwebs. They had been erecting some of those towers since before he was born. More were started every month. Where did they get the rockcrete from? Where did they get the steel and the adamantium and the granite? They couldn't mine it here. It must be coming in from off-world. But so much. Maybe there were entire fleets that carried it over. Maybe whole sectors devoted to stick to the task, stick to the task. He reached a heavy metal door, placed his hand on the ident panel, heard the lock slip open. He pushed at it and it eased inward on rusty hinges. Everything was already rusty. The chamber beyond was very dark. A servitor looked up at him from the shadows, its gray face withered like old leather. He ignored it, pushed on, brushing his sleeves against piles of books. He could smell the age of this room. Maybe 100 years, maybe more than 100. Some of these places were centuries old, they told him. Built in the very first days of the Great Reconstruction, it was hard to even imagine structures that ancient. Then again, it might all be lies. He'd begun to suspect that many of those in positions of authority didn't know half as much as they pretended to. Getting ahead was a matter of saying the right things, thinking the right things, forgetting the secrets too dangerous to know. Had it always been like that? Probably. People didn't change much. A cowled scholar was busy working away at a desk in the chamber's corner. Her scribe station was lit with a single candle. The woman's shadowed cheek was dominated by a grotesque augmetic across one brow that whirred and focused. She was bent double over sheets of parchment and holding an auto quill. "I need an archive pass," he told her. The scholar looked up slowly, still writing. All he could clearly see of her face was a pointed chin with a prominent mole. The rest was in the shadow of a thick cowl and the augmetic focuser. "What level?" "B-X cis-Iridium." She smirked. "No chance." "I need it." The autoquill paused. "How much?" He began to panic. Time was running out. Why had he been sent for this? Wasn't there anyone else? "My stipend for this month," he said grudgingly. She pondered for a moment, then rummaged in a drawer and withdrew a palm-sized slab of steel inscribed with various lock runes. "Get it transferred quickly. They're monitoring everything down here like hawks." "Because of the new feats?" he asked, taking the slab. "Of course. Who sent you down here for this?" He couldn't tell her. It was very important that he didn't tell her. Of all the things he had to remember, that was the most important one. "It'll be done quick." "Oh, and I wasn't here." "I wish you weren't." He scuttled off, the slab clutched in his sweaty palms, out of the chamber and down, skipping spiral stairs and even gloomier shadows, deeper and deeper where only the lower level stores, servitors, and guard cherubs prowled. You could get spooked down here, have an attack of the jitters. It smelled of bones and rotting parchment, of old secrets and dangerous truths. If he'd had time, he'd have paused at some of the cubby holes in parchment racks. He'd have taken his time looking through them all, hunting for juicy tidbits from the dimly recalled past. These were primary sources. These were the accounts that no one had tampered with yet, or seen fit to drop into an incinerator. He didn't do any of that. He scampered deeper, clutching the reference marker he'd been given. He glanced up at every intersection, scrutinized the lozenges over the archways. When he found the archive chamber he needed, he hurried inside, ran a quick auspex sweep, scuttled over to the storage racks. It didn't take long to find. He pushed the lock room slab into its slot, pulled the heavy casket door open. A sigh of stale air wafted out at him. Internal lumens flickered on. He stared at the contents. A lead box, heavy looking, but he able to carry it. The box was mottled with rust and covered in a thick layer of dust. He reached for it, dragged it into the open. He'd been told not to open the box. That had been made very clear to him, but the locks on it were manually operated, the kind of thing he could open and reseal and no one would know. He ran his thumb over the mechanism, pressing gently. It didn't it didn't yield. He'd have to push it hard to open it. He held he held back, drawing in a worried breath. He looked over his shoulder. No one there. Not even a servo squad. He looked back at the box. He needed to get back now. Time was pressing. But this would be the only chance he'd get. He looked at the box. Stick to the task. Fingers trembling, he reached for the lock. 1. I was not a cynic about it all. Not then and not now. I was not a cynic about it all. Not then and not now. Neither, though, was I entirely convinced. I had my doubts. You could be like that in those days. Some of the time, at least. If you were careful, walking that tightrope of maybe, maybe not. Don't mistake it for original thought. I just had difficulty coming up my I just had difficulty making up my mind. Lack of sleep had a part to play. Throne. I wish I'd learned to sleep and not to dream so much when I did. You could never be entirely happy, never be entirely settled if you're exhausted all the time. I shouldn't complain. I've seen things beyond imagination. I've been across the galaxy and back and survived to put some of what I saw to parchment. I was, am, lucky by any measure. And it was doubt in the end that turned me into what I am. Writers have a reputation for arrogance, for manipulation and self-regard. Maybe some are like that, but I don't think many are. We're all a bag of contradictions, of worries and obsessions and changes of mind. We can't cope with too much reality because we struggle with how messy and difficult it is already. So we invent our own worlds, try to make them stable, as if we could somehow retreat inside them and live there undisturbed. We can't, of course. We're stuck with the real world, and every time we put our pens down, it's right there still, waiting for us. I wish it were better. I wish it were simpler, with good and evil, yes and no, right and wrong. If it were, though, if it really were, what would layabouts like me do for a coin? Who would need interpreters and storytellers and myth makers if the world were already straightforward? So there's always a qualification if you look hard enough. Always a reason to second guess yourself. I traveled to meet Judita Widera, and it took a long time. 4 warp stages, 3 different ships. The passage was difficult and gave me a queasy stomach, but apart from the obvious difficulties, I didn't really mind it. No one else no one else gets any sleep in the warp, which at least puts us all on an equal footing. I should have used the time to prepare or maybe reflect on what missed chances and luck had brought me to such a straight pass, but I didn't. The food was pretty good on Imperial cruisers, and there was plenty of it. All of the ships were well run, with captains that either ignored me or appeared interested in what I did, so I didn't have any problems. I had a lot of free time and nothing much to do but eat and rest up, which suited me fine. It couldn't last. Excuse me. As I drew nearer my destination, the big naval station at Ashelon, I knew it would all start to gear up again. I'd been given a chance, and I was aware of just how precious it was, but the responsibilities would ramp up quickly, risking putting me back into that awful state that made working impossible. The black swamp, I called it. The mental sluggishness, the crushing weight of expectation, the freezing of any kind of inspiration, just in case someone out there, anyone at all, hated what I did. Ah, there I go again. Moan, moan. I was selfish then, when billions were fighting and dying all around us to create the future, and now, given what happened afterwards, I feel even more of a heel. But we can't all be soldiers, can we? I mean, he himself thought we were important. That's why he sent us out with the fleets, the scribblers and the scrawlers, tolerated for as long as we gave posterity something. Remembrance Servant. Great title. I liked it and took pride in it. Even if I hadn't done anything at that point remotely deserving of it. Widera was a remembrancer too, though not a fingernail chewing nerve bag wrecker like me. She was a painter and an imagist. I'd seen some of her stuff back on Hydrocelsus, just when I was coming out of my last monumental mind sulk and had liked it. Clever depictions, hovering on the edge of figurative but skillfully done. I didn't love it though. A bit too clever, if you know what I mean. A bit too knowing, as if it were more about pleasing the client than having a difficult vision. But what did I know? I'm not a critic, and I paint about as well as I fire a Lattice gun. She got cachet and contacts, which meant she knew much more than I did. She was probably a genius. We docked at Ashelon, and I walked down the umbilicals, feeling the flecky grab pull of the decks replaced with the firmer one of an orbital station. I took a look out of some narrow reel viewers and caught sight of a large world revolving far below, lurid orange pocked with black scars of major settlements. Everyone around me seemed to be in uniform. Decorated armed men, army officers, transit officials. Who made all those uniforms, I wondered. There must have been trillions of them out there, in all shapes and sizes. Did entire planets pump them out? Who designed them? Surely he hadn't, despite what the iterators banged on about. He couldn't have been responsible for everything. And yet, the way we all looked back then was important. It gave us our identity, made us part of the crusade. So someone must have had eyes on it. They were smarter than me at any rate. I was overweight, out of condition. My robes felt sweaty from waiting in the transit chambers, and I wish I'd shaved better. Hurrying past all those crisp pressed jerkins and polished breastplates made me feel like a vagrant somehow, hurled up out of a hive sump. I make more coin than any of them, I told myself, to try and make myself feel better. At least I would do if I delivered this time. It took me a long time to locate Widera's chamber. By the time I got there, I was sweatier than ever. I knew how to make a good first impression. The doors slid open while I was still trying to straighten my neck scarf. She smiled knowingly, beckoned me in, showed me a chair, poured us both a drink. From that point onward, things got better. She looked older than I thought she'd be. I hadn't expected her to resemble her ident images, taken years ago probably, but all the same, a long time on campaign clearly took its toll. For all that, she was neat, well-groomed, physically fit. I guess she was around 50 standard Terran, so with appropriate rejuvenat she was nowhere close to the end of her career. She had blue eyes, olive skin, silver hair in a bun, and wore a high-collared trousers suit. Avagis Catania, she said to me, doing a decent job of pronouncing my name. On time, too. You didn't expect that? I didn't know if you'd come at all. It was a good offer. I don't get many these days. That's a shame. Was it, or did I thoroughly deserve my expulsion from the limelight? Even I couldn't decide, and I knew more about the circumstances than most. I still don't know why you got in touch, I said, if I'm honest. Why Derek continued to regard me with calm amusement. Her expression was part tolerant, part resigned. I felt as if my mother had been talking to her somehow, and had passed on all her low-level irritation and my frequent calamities. Because I read it, she said. Oh, you read it? I'd meant to read it before I'd even signed up, but never had the time. And then there was a copy in the fleet's archives. Improbable. You'd be surprised what you can find on a Legion warship. And then there was the question, the one I always wanted to ask, but never wanted to ask, but had to ask because, well, you had to. So what did you think? Why Dara sat back in her chair, crossed her legs. I can see why it got you in trouble, and I can see why you didn't follow it up with anything much. When I paint something important, it can take a while to get back up there again. So maybe it's something similar with you. I doubt that. How long did it take to paint a picture? A few hours? A day or two? Writing a book? A serious book? That was months out of a life. Probably, yes, I said. So you liked it? Thrown I was needy. She laughed. You wanted me to tell you it was brilliant, that you never deserved what happened next. She carried on, looking amused. It was very good, but you know that. I didn't seek you out to flatter you. The Ninth Legion's deeds aren't being chronicled. The Primarchs aren't. You think in this Imperium of a million worlds that wordsmiths capable of turning in something decent and accurate would be like switch valves on a forge world, but they aren't, and the war makes it difficult, and we were running out of time. So that's that. I raised an eyebrow in what I hoped was a calmly interested way, but probably made my already lopsided face look idiotic. Running out of time. Of course. We're nearly done here. You know that. I must have looked I must have looked blank as a flicker of exasperation crossed her face. How many worlds are left to conquer? How long before we all head back to Terra and take stock of what we've done? We have a War Master now. We have the edge of the known void within sight. It can't go on forever. No one had ever put it to me like that before. A part of me, I suppose, had assumed that it would go on forever, or for decades more at least. We had all been born in the Crusade Age. We knew nothing else. What was supposed to come afterwards? I immediately felt unschooled and stupid. My dare had been out with the legions long enough to know all about galactic politics, the great schemes played by our immortal masters and their terror troop servants. Perhaps I was in over my head. Perhaps my first work had been a one-off, a lucky strike, something I wasn't clever enough or hard-working enough to ever achieve again. But I was here now, no going back. Either I bluffed and brazened my way forward just as I had always done before, or I might as well have skipped out of an airlock. Yes, yes, I said. That's the big picture. I thought you were referring to the immediate mission. Ah, no. There's no great hurry about that. We've got a week or two until we start most of that transit, so you can get your bearings. I meant to ask you about that. Where to? No one in the Navy would give me an expeditionary fleet location reading because there isn't one. Not yet. That's why I wanted you out here in the Red Scar so you could see where it all starts for them. I had wondered about that. Part of me had hoped for it, the other half dreading it. We all knew the stories. We all we all knew the stories. Then we're headed for My dear smiled again, now obviously enjoying my discomfort. "Quite so, Sir Catania," she said. "You should start preparing yourself now. Ball is no place for the unwary." And that is where we will stop for today. We will continue this later on, part 2, next time.